Biomutant, yeah, it's got some good ideas, but there's some that are really crazy ideas. Bad. Middle game.
Yes.
End of show again.
End of
I'm keen to
episode.
get out of here for some reason.
That's it. Yeah, the last time we might be able to do this in person for ages.
Yeah, come on, wrap it
Let's race through it. No, I just want to get home and get back on Zoom.
So Biomutant, a game developed by a bunch of developers who left Avalanche.
I think so, yes.
Who developed Just Cause, the Mad Max game that I loved,
Yeah.
and some other stuff, probably.
Yeah, I reckon.
Published
Just
by THQ
Cause.
Nordic.
Just Cause.
Just Cause.
Just cause.
Why,
Yeah.
why are you playing that? Just Cause.
Yeah.
What are you playing? Just Cause.
Which was the best thing about that game is you were just flying around blowing shit up just cause.
Just
that
cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was like the point of it.
You had just cause to say just cause.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of lettuce do I like? Just cause.
Oh, really?
Wow, that's very narrow-minded. You're missing out on Rocket.
I hate Rocket actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Here he goes.
Nah.
It's the stare, the 1,000-yard stare.
What kind of...
What do you wish the
no,
Titanic snook had seen?
no. What kind of three women musical group with violins do I like? Just Cause.
Yes. Yes.
There you
Yeah.
go. Took too
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
but I got there.
Yeah.
So, you know,
That should be like an unlockable.
fast forward if you didn't like the amount of time I was thinking for. Skip.
Remember when unlockables in games were like kind of funny? Like there'd be like gag things in games.
Having played Shadow Man recently,
Right.
there were a bunch of cheats you could get where it's like, play as a dog. And that sort of
Right.
thing where it was
Right,
just
yeah.
like no benefit, just
was-
a fun little thing.
I was listening to a
Big head
podcast
mode.
about Wave Race 64 and the subsequent GameCube follow-up recently.
Yeah.
But they were talking about in the GameCube one, there was a cheat that was kind of laid dormant for ages. People only found this relatively recently, where if you put a code in, the announcer voice in the game turns really sarcastic. So it's like every move you do, it's like, yeah, good one.
Okay.
Yeah, you really did bad there, didn't you? And it's like, that's so cool.
Yeah. What if you took that fun idea of having an annoying voice play over the top of your game
Yeah.
and made an entire game wrapped around that
What
idea?
if you took the idea of playing as a dog and made an entire game out of that
Yeah.
idea?
So by
But anyway, it would have been good to see that make a comeback in the Just Cause games. If you'd entered a little code, if you could have, every time you blow up a base, you just hear "You're forgiven, not forgotten" playing as you like hang glide your way to safety.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah,
You
I
know,
like it.
pretty
yeah.
cool.
Change
Pretty
the
cool.
vibe. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, these people, they left Avalanche in 2015.
Right.
So that was around the time Mad Max was coming out, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it was.
And Just Cause 3 would have been the next year maybe.
Yep.
Right.
So they got out of there, and since then they've been making this game Biomutant.
Yes.
I feel like it's been around for ages. I remember it being announced and shown. Like basically, what is the intro to this game now? They showed 6 years ago.
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like pretty much soon as they existed, they were like, guess what, Biomutant.
I found a thing, it leaked in like a scan from a magazine before it had been announced. There was
Right.
just like
Right.
now the like promo image of the little
raccoon guy.
raccoon guy who, yeah, it's kind of weird because you make your own little character. Like you don't really play as him.
Yeah, so you start off doing it. It's like an open world action kind of semi RPG, but just stats on a kind of third person combat,
Yep.
slashing and shooting.
Real time combat.
Yeah.
but with like skill tree, sort of skill tree stuff. Yeah, stat
You're
building.
getting
like,
new little
powers.
combos that are all quite
Yeah.
simple, and you're doing crafting and making better loot and stuff. But it's not RPG in the way of like there's not really much interaction or character building in terms of plot to do.
But
Yeah,
there-
yeah.
But there is in terms of at the very start, you go through, you pick like a class, and
Yeah.
then you pick like skills to special. It's got all that sort of stuff.
And that changes the way your character looks, which is a cool idea. So
Yes.
based on whether you are faster, you might have longer legs, and if you're smarter, you've got a bigger head and that sort of thing.
I really like the character creation stuff, and it does indicate like it is going to be an RPG. That's what I thought. I was like, because I just played Mass Effect, you know,
Right.
and I'm like, oh yeah, cool, like classes and stats, and there is there's dialogue selections in the game, but they're irrelevant
And a
They're all
very
the same,
light,
basically.
light and dark, a very
Yeah.
surface level seeming kind of good or bad choice.
If
type
this
system.
description sounds kind of like jumbled and has too many ideas in it,
Yeah.
that's reflective of the game. It's kind of hard to describe because it's like little bits and pieces of a bunch of good games.
They've thrown a lot of stuff at this, and it kind of ends up having that. What's that saying? Like, wide as an ocean, shallow as a puddle type of feeling.
Yep.
Where you're it all ends up being collectathon type stuff and Assassin's Creed style. Go into this fort and fight these people, but it's all you're doing the same basic thing. You're either moving from one place to another or fighting some people,
And
and
you
that's
pick,
kind of
like-
all games when you boil them down at some point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's just no motivation to do them in this game other than a quite nice looking environment.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of reviews of this game because I'm sort of like, I don't know how to feel about it, and I've been seeing a lot of pushback in the comments. Surprisingly, a large amount of people who have been waiting for 6 years, expecting
Right.
this to be great, and have the sort of pre-existing impression that it's really good, and they're sort of like jumping in the comments being like, this review complains about repetitious open world stuff, but every open world game is like that, and it's hard to, it's like, well, okay, top level criticism of the criticism, you're correct,
Yeah.
but when you play it, it's like, maybe it's just not fun enough or something.
It's just sort of boring in this.
Yeah.
And
'Cause
it
you're right,
feels
I
a
mean-
little janky and it feels a little weird. And you can say, like, oh, every movie is just shots of people saying things.
Right.
But some are better than others. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Yeah,
like
you're right. Every game boils down to that, but the good ones do a better job of disguising it, of tricking
and-
you into like forgetting that you're just doing a task again and again and again and again.
I think the thing that makes it stand out in this too is that the quality is patchy. It's not that
Yeah.
it's bad all the time. It's that it wildly swings
Yeah.
between I'm having quite a lot of fun right now to this fucking sucks.
Well, let's
Yeah.
talk about the fun things.
Because I think, Ben, what you're saying, those comments, I think
Yes.
what's actually going on there is that they're saying, sure, you may be saying that the open world is boring and repetitive, but what you haven't factored in is that the little rats are sexy and I want to fuck them. I think that's what's going on with anyone who's
Yeah.
going in really to bat with this game before it's
Now,
come out.
You're
Yeah.
telling me that it's quite boring to walk from one objective to another when they're basically the same objective, but you're looking at that rat's sweet, sweet little ass the entire time. So I don't quite understand where the problem
Yeah,
comes.
you hate to see the fetch quest, but you love to see him walk there.
I was trying to piece that together in my head.
I don't know if I nailed it, but
I felt like I was going to have a stroke.
That's the right direction.
sure,
You got it.
yeah.
The moving around the world and the world looks nice, and the combat can often be quite enjoyable.
Yes.
Going and exploring these little ruins, you're in like sort of a
Let's talk about what this is. Yeah, it's
world.
post-apocalyptic
Yes.
world, and it's all little kind of like little vermin creatures that have become
Like the dominant life form.
Yeah, various forms of mutation, but it's like a lot of like, just wreckages of towns and stuff, and
Yeah.
then big sort of mutant things attacking you, and various different sort of like otters and rats and stuff that are kind of humanized. And
Yeah, it's difficult to get a real good handle on it early on because the way it's presented is very confusing. You get a lot of strange nouns thrown at you, but you're like a bunch of little rats, and then there's some meat eaters who roam around and they're dangerous, and then there's like some world-ending big animals that are dangerous as well. There's a tree of life that's trying to bring the world back, but there's some big animals that are trying to wreck the world again.
Yep.
Humans are long gone, but their cities there are sort of torn down versions.
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
cities.
And you early on, one of your earliest kind of missions is going and picking a tribe to align yourself with, and that again, that sort of reeks to me of one of those things where whichever one you choose doesn't really make too much of a difference to what you're going to be doing
No.
in the game. It just feels like one of the tribes is like, we should let the world eaters just destroy everything and start again, and the other one is like, no, we should try and have unity. And it's like, I bet whether I pick the peaceful ones or the evil ones, it's just going to end up being the same stuff.
You're either
Going
turning
into camps
the
and-
green areas yellow or the yellow areas green.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the
yeah.
ending's different.
Sure.
Right,
But it's
yeah.
sort of the
in terms of what
gameplay,
you, mechanically, it doesn't really change anything.
But
Yes.
so then what you're doing either way is going around an open world and finding little interesting bits, and maybe you'll get a little quest to be like, go get us some wood, please. Or maybe you'll get more interesting quests that are like, go into this area and explore,
Please,
please.
very polite game.
Yeah. Well, if you
Wow.
picked the nice tribe,
Yeah.
you picked the bad tribe. They're like, fucking go and look into this area.
Why haven't you done that yet?
Cunt.
Move it, oi, fuckhead. Go kill, do the same combat puzzle, but in the other place. Not really puzzles, but there's just little, in some missions you get little arenas where it's like, oh, there's a thing in the corner here. Maybe we need to get the big guy to charge into that. And small stuff, but the main enjoyable part of this is the same sort of thing that you get from like a Mad Max of big open world, go around and tick off all the boxes in a calming way.
Yes.
If you're just relaxing and doing that, it's quite fun, and
Yeah.
I'm finding it engaging in that way because it looks nice enough. It plays
cool
okay.
world. Yeah, the environment looks nice.
There's
yeah.
sort of scale things of like you're a very small animal and like a giant ruined bridge.
Yep.
Like visually, that stuff's all really executed quite well.
And it's just not like it is sometimes fun to go around and tick off those boxes,
Yes.
collect all the stuff. You know, like it's
no worse in that sense, or in any sense, I feel like, than Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I just played.
right.
And find the story to be a little shallow and the characterization a little shallow, but mechanically and visually very fun.
Right, and it doesn't quite have that same level of polish because you can tell that this is a team who is making a game against the odds. It really feels like this game fell apart 5 times and they nearly fucked it a bunch of. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really get that feeling like this is an old car with an engine that's about to get out, but oh boy, it'll just get you there.
It feels really nice to move around into, like just the pure exploration.
I love the animation of when you go from walking to sprinting.
Yes.
With your little rabbit guy going onto all fours and galloping along.
It's cool, and there's a lot of cool ideas, and the three of us have been talking about this a bit during the week in our group chat. My biggest issue with it is just the tone of it is just all over the place.
Yeah.
And for what you're saying about it falling apart and then, reassembling it a few times, I think this is where it really shows that, because it's somewhere between kind of being like a Street Sharks, like Ninja Turtles, kind of like goofy mutant animals thing. And then it's got this sort of action movie comic book like effect where when you're in combat, little bits of like text will appear, like and sound effects and all that stuff above characters' heads. And
like
then,
your special move you just did, the name of it will go
all that kind of stuff. And then the third element is this like incredibly like earnest storyline of like the tree of life uniting everything. And I think the thing we're finding most annoying about it, the three of us, is that there is a British narrator that is constantly piping up through this game.
He's the only guy that's piping up.
Yeah, so any cutscenes that you have, any new characters that you meet, they speak in gibberish, which is subtitled.
Like Banjo-Kazooie style.
Yeah.
And it's
but then the narrator comes over the top and goes, he's telling you that this is what you should do. And it becomes
awful.
Infuriating immediately.
An insane decision because it means none of the characters have any character to them because you've only got one personality that you're interacting with at any point. And it's a grating one.
It's a real shame that the characters don't have that personality through the voice, because visually they're great.
Yeah.
Like it is a really creative game visually. I love the customization and, like you said, Nox, like putting more points into strength and you like the character looks tougher, but also putting more points into like psionics or whatever, their brain gets bigger. Like that's fun, that's cool stuff. And like the pre-existing characters or the designed ones are pretty creative and they're fun and they're like, it's a fantastic Mr. Fox. Like give those characters fun, good voices.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like that.
And just the gibberish voices is fine because my guess as to why they've done this is so that they only have to translate it with one actor when they translate it. That's purely a guess, but it does cut down on that.
Right.
But it just has such a negative impact on
But if they just
the
spoke
game.
gibberish and then you were watching it subtitled, it wouldn't
Be
matter.
fine.
You don't need to have English-speaking voices or like,
It's having this guy that's visually and audibly full of personality, like looks interesting and goes, has like a specific noise that they make. And then it's like, basically what he says is go over there. Like the narrator doesn't even seem to give a shit about trying to put that personality that they clearly have onto them.
Right.
Just that getting a summary of what someone said is very frustrating, even in real life. If someone's like, they told you to come around at 3, and they're like, but no, what did they say though?
Yeah.
Did they say come around at 3, or they're like, oh, maybe he could show up at 3? Like, be specific.
Yeah. And also like the...
Tell me exactly. I cannot handle this.
I need to know when I'll be 5 minutes late for.
It's also just like a weird step removed from the world, because like
Completely
it is
takes
such
you out
this
of it.
rich world, and it's like, well, who's this narrator? Like, I'm sort of out of the idea that I'm like currently experiencing and like immersing myself in this world. It's like, so am I reading a storybook? Am I watching this as a thing that's like already happened? Like, why is this being narrated? It just completely takes you out of the world and makes you feel like you're observing in on something rather than this is an avatar for you and your decisions.
Totally. No justification for it given, and then throws a lot of stuff at you like there's a lot of, it's a very sort of kids fantasy novel type of thing to change the word mother to Muma because it's a crazy world.
Wang Fu.
Exactly. You don't know what any of those fucking words mean though, when you're doing it. So like instead of saying, "Oh, turn that wheel over there," turn that twirly curly or whatever. Like they've just got. Maybe that's just an English thing. I don't know. But
they developed Mad Max, and that game came out, I think, just before or like really close to Fury Road coming out. And Fury Road, I guess this was in the previous Mad Max movies.
Yeah, it was.
But the language stuff was different, like gasoline and all that stuff. But that was very foregrounded in Fury Road.
Yeah.
And it was done well. Like, it's a very fine line to tread of being sort of lame and corny and cheesy and like a fun, interesting addition to the world. And they did that stuff in the game, in the Mad Max game. It's all in there as well.
Yeah.
But it's obvious what it means. Like, it's always very close approximations of what the word would have been in our time, 100 years ago, pre-apocalypse. And it's not done in like a cartoony, kiddie, comic-y sort of way.
And the effect is just completely the opposite, where that is immersive and this one completely takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Like there's we were talking about this in the chat. There's a character that you meet early on who is dressed up as Elvis.
And he's going, oh.
Yeah, and his little gibberish is like all that. And so first of all, like, why? Like, who cares, but why? But then, so you've got all this visual stuff, but then the subtitles and what the narrator is saying is just straight up like...
Yeah, Elvis just said,
Go over there and look in that pile of weeds.
Yeah, there's no personality in the actual
so
translation of the dialogue. And if this, if it had have been... Banjo-Kazooie style, and they actually had put some flavour into the text and built this out, then it would feel great. And I mean, my personal taste would be, I wish they had just fully gone in the direction of going, let's make a Street Sharks style, like dumb mutant animal 90s style kind of. Let's really riff on that and just make it sort of dumb and very silly, but
because they're not quite that far, and they're not quite at the point where they're serious about it. It's a weird tone anyway.
It's really
like you
earnest,
said.
like orchestral score that comes in, and the Tree of
like
Life
your
stuff
weird
just
looking
feels
fucking
so
rabbit
off.
mum, like very early on, dies in a flashback. You're like, okay, I don't give a shit about that weird looking creep.
They throw
Who's
a lot
Mamuma?
of you. They throw so much stuff at you at the start of like story stuff, then flashbacks, and
tutorial stuff as well.
We don't understand the world yet, let alone who you were as a child and what weird things you're learning, like abilities and like just like drop us in. And tonally, I would be happy for it to be a sort of earnest post-apocalyptic thing with animals.
Yeah.
And lean into some like movie tropes, but don't make Elvis one of the side
It's
just
very
like
weird.
having an anthropomorphic animal be a character in a game that's treated seriously is enough of a fun idea. Don't add this other stuff on top.
And Elvis is fine if he doesn't come out of nowhere when the whole lead up to that has been like the world's over and the
and
tree
then
of
it's
life
like,
is dying.
You're
Why
the chosen
is this
one.
rat obsessed with Elvis?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
How did he learn about Elvis?
That's our box cover pull quote. Why is this rat obsessed with Elvis? 3 stars.
it's honestly, because it's such a shame because all of that stuff really detracts from your motivation to engage with the kind of fun stuff that's in there. Like, it's not a terrible game. I don't think it's the best thing, but it feels like a remaster of like a PS2 or N64
big time
era game.
It really feels like the kind of weird thing that came out around that era where and we also should say that like from in the past when we've had these kinds of issues with games, like we all know from then looking in our Facebook group and the Discord and like listeners of ours that have been playing these games where we felt like that the writing is corny or that the tone is off. I think we the three of us, for whatever reason, that sort of stuff bothers us more than it tends to bother our listeners. So your mileage on this will probably be quite different. And if you do just want like a fun open world thing that is, at least in terms of its characters and setting, it is doing something pretty different to what else is out there, and it is trying something pretty new. So maybe it is maybe it is worth a go, because I don't think any of us think that it's terrible.
No.
It's just I find myself not really wanting to put it on again because there's a setting in the options where you can choose how often the narrator pipes up, and I put it all the way down to 0, and I swear to God, he's chiming in more, almost as if the game is trying to spite me for silencing him.
The
it's
game
bizarre.
is a little buggy, so it could be that, but there's another setting in the options where you can just turn off speech volume. And I've got in and done that, and he never speaks. There's subtitles, but whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that has made it a lot more enjoyable. With that change and skipping every cutscene, it is a decent Assassin's Creed style game. It is very much, if you like that type of thing, that open world, throwing everything in the bucket that they can think of.
Yep.
But it all plays kind of similarly, but it can be relaxing. It is that game, and it's a not terrible one at all. But fucking turn all the voices off, in my opinion.
It's you still have to skip twice because you skip the voiceover and you skip the subtitle after that.
The gibberish and the subtitle,
and you can so easily because the gibberish goes beep 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 for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you take a second to skip, you've just skipped over the text that pops up.
Yes.
There's lots of little weird glitchy kind of things like that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, they've been working on this game for a long time, and it feels like, like you said, that they've had a bit of trouble kind of just nailing it. And I feel bad for them, like the timing that it's coming out as well, because I kind of found myself going like, oh, I wish they had just committed in one direction more solidly to this kind of like goofy animals idea, because I would like to play a game like this that looks good and has good environments and it's fun animals and you're doing shooting, and then I realised, oh yeah, Ratchet and Clank is out in 2 weeks, and I'm going to get that from that. So
and
it's
it'll
like,
be more directed, I think.
But you know what I mean? It's like I feel like there's just kind of enough different sort of things have come out around the same time as this that are sort of like negatively, not that you can control this kind of stuff, but you always feel a bit bad when you realize something is going up against a sort of similar toned kind of thing that's probably going to do it a bit more effectively.
Well, and as the same thing in terms of gameplay, really, where this is doing the Assassin's Creed thing, where there's like a bunch of different options for you, but it's kind of too much. It makes it just a little confusing at times, or like, because it's all fairly simple, but there's just so much of it that you lose track of,
and
like, here's the crafting, here's my one type of power, here's my other type of power, here's the leveling up the thing.
It's very Mass Effect, but it's, again, it pales in comparison, which is really unfortunate. Because it's like, well, like I was trying to use the powers today. I was like, why they're not shooting? And one of them's like, oh, when you dash, this will, it's like, oh, okay, this is not clear enough. Like, if you're going to have powers, just make it shoot a fireball or something.
Right.
I also don't like the sort of interface stuff. It looks like Fortnite, and that's been pointed out by other people. Like, the font is Fortnite. It's very sort of childlike or cartoony. Yeah. And again, like,
just small things like you can't get rid of your quest tracker.
Yeah.
So you've always got one on, and so you can never really just go free roam around without a little thing. Really small, but when you're noticing a lot of things being not quite there, it all kind of stacks up.
You can't save your game when you're in the middle of one of the childhood flashback sequences. That's like, no, you are doing this in one sitting. Otherwise, you'll go off and you'll do other stuff and you'll forget the lore that we're trying to teach you about.
This is a memory. You cannot abandon a memory. They're there forever.
There weren't save states 15 years ago, so there's not save states in the world of this game 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you love that type of open world game, this is decent.
I think it's not just us, because all the reviews have sort of mentioned the sort of tonal things and the sort of strange storytelling and the vibe and stuff. But it's the kind of thing where it does come down to taste. And if you find the narrator very charming, which I can see that happening. Like, I liked Stephen Fry narrating Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It's Stephen Fry
15 years ago.
Giving you the little Big Planet tutorials is what it made me think of.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I did like that back then. Maybe your taste will align with this now. And like, there's enough elements of like comic booky stuff, the sort of humor, some people can find it humorous. Yeah.
I kind of, this really feels to me something like, because I think it's at the moment, it's like a 67 on Metacritic. So I think it's like 6.57. I can definitely see this being the sort of thing that gets these kind of reviews when it first comes out, because it's being judged by, press who play everything. But it's the sort of thing you can imagine in a year to 2 years' time, finding out that it's got this like big cult following. I can see like the people that don't care about any of that stuff, that don't play everything, that haven't played the last few Assassin's Creeds. It's just like resonating a lot deeper and it being a thing that like really finds a pretty hardcore audience.
Yeah.
I could imagine.
The vibe of one of those games that came out during the 2000s, like a lot of the time out of Europe, like a game called Boiling Point, I remember was one of them, where they were really off the grid games that were pretty broken, but they did one thing that people liked enough that, or like it just locked in with whatever puzzle jigsaw piece someone had in their head. I struggle to imagine this being quite that game for a lot of people, because I think it's doing the stuff it does the best. It is still doing at not probably enough of a level, or it's not different enough from an Assassin's Creed or something, where I could see if you love Assassin's Creed, maybe you like this game even less because it's not doing that stuff you like quite to the level that other things do. Does that make sense?
And I think it's
but I do think that people who love Assassin's Creed love all these games.
Well, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I've sort of found when I sort of go diving into the comments looking for the general sort of groundswell of opinion.
Yeah.
Like, people who love these collectathon open world games, specifically the Ubisoft ones, do seem to love them all. Like that
Right.
Immortal, what was it called? Gods and Phoenix.
Immortals
fucking-
Phoenix
Oh,
Rising.
yeah.
People love that. Like, it did okay with reviews, but like, it seemed like the people who sought it out, bought it, and played it, not to review it, really enjoyed it.
This is to Assassin's Creed what Immortals Phoenix Rising is to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, everything's not done to quite the same degree, and there's elements of the story that are bad decisions, in my opinion, in a different way for this one, where, like, it's not that the writing necessarily, it's just that the way the writing is delivered completely doesn't let you enjoy any of the writing because it's not there.
Yeah.
Then everything else, I think I'd probably be fine to just chip away through it, and I guess I can turn that off. But it's like everything else, you can kind of go, oh, okay, yeah. But the narrator is just like such a baffling stylistic choice. Like everything else, I can sort of go, oh, it's a matter of taste and whatever. But the narrator, just like the frequency of it and the way that it pulls you out is. But knowing that you can turn that off,
Turning that off,
it's like just
and
do that.
getting past those first maybe 3 hours where it's like a little guided, and getting properly into it being an open world game where you're going around and doing random side quests that you get by moving around. I've really enjoyed it a lot more. As that.
And I would say it is. Yeah, I feel like, as happens a bit, we're being a little negative because we can't look past this thing that we find sort of obnoxious and tedious about it. But yeah, I think it'll have its audience out there. So
I agree, yeah.
At the very least, in a few months' time when it's on sale or whatever, like it's definitely worth dipping in that respect, when you've got a bit of a bit of a break in your schedule and you want something new to play, and if you like this kind of style of thing, because it is. Bits of it are very creative and unique, and I think it's worth checking out based on that alone.
Yeah.
Sure. If you love that type of game, the open worldy Assassin's Creed Mad Maxi type of thing,
And it does, adding the gun,
you might like it.
I do like some of the combat. Like,
Yeah.
I like most of the combat. I like some of the combinations of existing mechanics, like the gun, the melee, the dodge. Like, maybe the powers aren't super intuitive, but it's, I think if you take away the tonal weird stuff, and it pops up on Game Pass, or it's a half price sale in 6 months. Because I loved Mad Max and no one else did in the world, apparently. Like, it just came and went, and reviews were pretty average, again, like 6s, 7s.
Yep.
But the combination of like car combat and exploration and the setting, that was like enough for me to love the game.
Yeah.
And I didn't even like, the story or the dialogue in that game. So I can see this really hitting with some people.
Yeah.
Maybe, but
Because it feels good and it looks good, and
Yeah.
some people, don't care about all the other stuff that's on top of it. So
Yeah, that is something else I keep seeing when I look for reactions to this. People being like, I don't care about video game stories. I just want to play it. I skip every cutscene. Like,
Yeah.
well, you probably
I wanna
like
be-
this game.
I mean,
Hot
if you're
rat
doing
with a
that
big
already,
brain.
then like go nuts, I suppose.
yeah.
But I still don't think any of the gameplay stuff quite gets anywhere to a high point. Like all that everything removed, it's like a 7 out of 10 type of thing where it's
Right.
like, okay, this is fine. But then the story stuff drags it down just because it's so in your face early on as well,
Yeah.
and it's so constant that you kind of can't skip it. So even if you're trying to avoid it, you kind of can't. But like, it's a decent thing of what it's trying to do. So if you love that type of genre, maybe you'll get something out of this. But
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
not bother with it otherwise.